Hey everybody, so it looks like we are live. Hopefully you can hear me. Got a little bit of a new setup at home. So today I wanted to profess my love for government monopolies, particularly those on approving medicine and drugs. The FDA, as some of you who follow some of the side notes in my stream know, I am an avid biotech investor on the side. It's one of the things that I do, one of the things that I enjoy, and... Well, so one of the things I enjoy is the stuff on the some of the stock stuff I do on the side. And there's this one thing called the Prescription Drug User Fee Act. The entire idea behind this is that the FDA is a government monopoly on the approval of new drugs, new things, new contraceptives, new vaccines, and whatnot. And they have the tendency to move at the speed of a government monopoly. And government bureaucracy that moves at the speed of a government monopoly doesn't exactly have a tendency to go quickly. So the FDA PDUFA, Prescription Drug User Fee Act, was a law passed by Congress in 1992 that allows the FDA to collect fees from drug manufacturers to fund the new drug approval process. So let's say that the FDA says, oh my God, we're overwhelmed with applications for new drugs. How do we handle all this? One of the things that they do is they will take money from the drug companies in order to get the process moving faster. So this way they can afford to hire the people to look through everything, to read the applications. That was the intention, and it says that this is mostly the result of dissatisfaction among consumers, industry, and the FDA. And you can take a look at the costs over here. You can get an idea of some of the average costs if you have, NDA with clinical, NDA with a clinical non-NME. And this is not dollars. This is not $459. That's not $5,646. These prices are in thousands of dollars. So this here is not 5,646. That's 5,646,400. Those numbers are quite inflated. So they have the ability to accept very large amounts of money to review the data that is provided. They have huge amounts of money that they can use to fund independent consultants and panelists to come in from the free market and say, listen, I know you make a lot of money doing what you do. Would you mind taking this big sum of money to review some of this stuff about this drug? It's a good thing, I think, because it allows a little bit of free market into what is typically a completely government monopoly. Now, any of you know that I enjoy following biotechs. I enjoy following stocks. I remember I was talking to you guys about CXW before the last election. If you followed that, you probably would have bought in around here, and you can see where that went. I was talking about Rail before the last election. Where is that? NYSE or NASDAQ? Yeah, okay, NASDAQ. I got that wrong. Yeah, I have so there are things I recommend, and one of the things I remember buying this year was AGRX, and well, you can see that number there. You could probably see why I'm up at 1 in the morning doing a video. So I bought in earlier this year after the stupid Pearl Index panic, and then I sold around here, not at the top. I bought back in after the funding, and then I sold around Thanksgiving, and then I bought in again, and then I sold. And then I let like some of my profits stick in just in case it got approved, and crash. Now, again, not broke. I know how to diversify my portfolio, and I kept a good amount of my profits from the run-up and just kind of let my a portion of my initial investment slide. What do you mean? The title of this video is I Love Government Monopolies, so I don't know what you guys are talking about. That has, yeah, not much I can do if YouTube is deciding to be a pile of shit. Hey, complain to Susan whatever the hell, I can't spell her name. But yeah, see this over here? This is the title of my video. Not much I can do if Google screwed it up. Anyway, back to this. So now if we were to look as to why this was not approved, we can take a look at some of their press releases, and this is one of the things that drives me nuts when it comes to government. So if we go over here and we look at this complete response letter, you'll see that there's a lot here, blah-de-blah-de-blah, adhesion, cannot approve in present form, NDAs, CRLs, all this confusing stuff. All I really want to draw your attention to is this one, this one particular line here, which is essentially them saying, my bad, bro, I didn't do my homework, which is, let's find this. Here it says, the CRL acknowledges receipt of the company's NDA amendment submitted December 1st and states that the amendment was not reviewed prior to the FDA's action. So to make a very long story very short, I can explain it in the description of the video. This company, the FDA said, hey, we have issues with the way that you were testing this product. When you were testing this product, you were using a round adhesive patch instead of a rectangle, so it was acting funny, it was showing funny results when you were doing the adhesion test. Can you test in this new way? Here's the way that we would do it, here's the qualified way. Agile says, sure, we'll do that, and within 2 weeks, changes up their entire method of manufacturing. They change up the entire way they do business. And then they produce a detailed report with findings to the FDA on everything they did to do everything the way that they suggested. And then the FDA says, we're not going to approve it because of issues with adhesion. And they completely admitted that after redoing the entire test to the FDA's requests to make it qualified, that they didn't even fucking read the report. That is, and this to me is funny because I have experienced this bullshit in biotech before many times, but I don't think I've ever actually experienced that line being used on a PDUFA. So I want you to imagine here that you're a student at some private college, and you submit a report to your professor. And it's early. You submit it a few weeks early, and you say, "What do you think of this? This is going to be my paper, my final paper." And the professor says, "I like all the ideas in your paper, but your punctuation sucks. You need to fix that." So you fix the punctuation, and you give the professor the paper in 2 weeks. And 2 weeks later, you give the professor the paper, and the professor says, "Okay, thank you very much for the paper." And the paper's not due for another month. Then, when the month passes, your professor fails you for the class and says the paper had bad punctuation. And you say, "But professor, I resubmitted the paper and fixed the punctuation." And the professor says, "Yeah, you did, but I didn't fucking read it." Now, imagine that professor saying that after you paid that professor $5 million or $1.8 million or $700,000 for the sole privilege of them reading your submission in an expedient manner. The entire point of a PDUFA is the ability for the FDA to charge money in order to get an expedient, in order for the company to receive a more expedient answer. And I mean, this is... And here's the thing, this is not new. Like, so there are a lot of people going, "Oh my God, I can't believe they did that." And I'm like, what are you talking about? So let me show you another drug that I invested in last year. I'll show you the chart and I'll let you guess what went on. So I invested in a little drug called DynaVox, and I can't get this to do like a year and a month, and I don't feel like figuring it out on video. But I invested around, I believe, $9.60, $9.45 area, because I did all my due diligence. I believed in Heplisav. I thought it would be an excellent addition. Excellent vaccine there. So I did my research, and I forget what most of it was because it's 2 a.m. and I have to stay up to catch a bus in a few hours. So but I'm kind of dead tired. Anyway, I did my due diligence, found out it would be a great investment around $9.70. Now what you can see here is that it dropped into the 4s. And then very quickly went back up. Well, not quickly, it took like 6 months for it to go back up to around 9 where it was, then to 16, then to 24. Like an idiot, I held it, and then I wound up selling it around 20, and it went back down to 18. But still, hey, 18, much better than a 10. much better than 4. I remember doubling down at 4. And a lot of people thought that I was being kind of ridiculous here. But let's just take a look at those press releases. Let's see if I can find DynaVox's press releases so that we can find out why DynaVox crashed so hard. So if we were to look over here, DynaVox Technologies, and go back to around, Jess, I'm sure, has been hounding you. Jess is hounding me, but I still made more money off of this than I would have if I had sold at her initial point and never bought back in. If you're going to buy back in, don't buy back in with your entire portfolio. Buy back in with like a quarter. Or, you know, if you're going to leave your initial investment to ride out into a risky area, do that with, you know, 20%, 25%, something like that. Anyway, let's see. So, yes, for all of you complaining about the title, this is the title of the video. I can't explain to you why YouTube did a dumb thing. YouTube does dumb things all the time. It's one of the many, many reasons they don't pursue it as a primary form of income. I typed in this. I don't know what title you're seeing, but this is the title I intended for you to see. Not sure why that didn't work. Anyway, back to the story here. And if somebody else complains about the title, they can suck it. DynaVox receives complete response letter from U.S. Food and Drug Administration, and this is at the same time that you can see over here that there is this drop from 1160 to 4 and now, if we scroll, you're going to see a very similar result to what we saw with Agile. It said it would, so long story short, the CRL is seeking information regarding specific adverse effects of special interest, which is another way to say, you know, fucked up side effects, for lack of a better way to put it. And so they were looking for information and clarification on AESIs. Now, if we look, you'll read here, the FDA acknowledged that it has not yet completed its review of responses received from DynaVox in early October, including those pertaining to AESIs and the numerical imbalance in cardiac events. The responses included an extensive analysis that included independent expert consultation in supporting our view that the imbalance was driven by an unexpectedly low number of events in the comparator arm. It would appear that the agency could not fully assess the responses in the review period. In the CRL, there is no request for additional clinical trials, and there are no apparent concerns with rare, serious autoimmune events. The CRL is consistent with our opinion that Heplisav-B is approvable, and we are seeking to meet with the FDA as soon as possible. The main thing that you should get out of this is in the CRL, the FDA acknowledges that it has not yet completed its review of responses from DynaVox in early October, aka 2 months ago. And what drives me nuts about this is that we live in a time particularly where many people are advocating for larger government, bigger government, more government involvement in so many areas of life, so many aspects of everything from healthcare to diversity initiatives to welfare initiatives to just every industry, people to the internet. People are advocating for the government to get more involved. But this, what you see on screen, is the government. You can give the government millions upon millions of dollars, and they can have the fucking balls to say, oh yes, we realized that we had a question about your product. We realized that you sent us a report about that product 1 month ago and paid us millions of dollars to read it. But hey, fuck you. We're not going to read it. Who cares? Who cares if more people get hepatitis? Who cares if more people have children they didn't want because the leading birth control patch has far too many side effects and the pill is difficult to remember? Who cares? We got paid. And there's nobody else that can do what we can do. So fuck you. I mean, you have to read this to understand. When you in the CRL, the FDA acknowledged it has not yet completed its review of responses. So your job, your one job, is to read over the reports and make a decision. And they didn't say, we read the report, but we haven't come to a conclusion. We didn't say, we read the report, but we're getting different opinions from different experts and different panelists. No, you say out loud in a public statement, I know that you paid us for this application. I know that you answered all of our questions in a report. But hey, fuck you. We're not even going to read it. Who cares? And this always happens right before a holiday. So this one happened right before Thanksgiving with DynaVox, and this one with Agile happened right before Christmas. I mean, I remember as a kid when the holidays would come around, I remember what my teacher said, and I guess part of the theme here is that I remember what it was like to be young. I remember what it was like to be a kid. I remember what it was like to have adults constantly pound into my head this concept of accountability and responsibility. I remember the generation that grew up in the 50s and the late 40s and the early 60s always telling me the importance of responsibility. Hey, Lewis, I know, don't stop working. I know it's right up to Christmas, but that's no excuse to be lazy. Hey, I know it's the last day before school vacation, but that's no excuse to ignore finishing up your reports and projects. Hey, I know you're tired of writing for 6 hours straight, nonsensical bullshit facts that you're never going to have to remember about the difference between the Hopi and the Navajo and blah, blah, blah. But guess what? You have to do it. You have to do it. You have to take responsibility and do your job, even though you're not getting paid for this, even though you never signed up for it, even though it's kind of a government-sponsored prison. You gotta do it. There's no excuses. Once you're on vacation, you're on vacation. That's the way it is. But until you are, we're gonna drill you into the ground with this crap that is not even remotely relevant to the real world. Now, the interesting part of this is that when they grow up, and they actually enter the job market, they take millions upon millions upon millions of dollars, and then will send companies that create vaccines like HepliSav notices saying, we didn't even read it. And I can't understand how you could actually put this on paper. If I didn't read it, if you presented me a report on a potentially a vaccine that prevents a miserable illness that often leads to a miserable life and death, and I didn't even take the time to fucking read it, I would have shame. I would at least make something up. I would have the respect for you to realize that what I did was so screwed up that I can't tell the truth. I have to make something up. I cannot tell you I simply didn't read the shit that you left on my desk 2 months ago. I wouldn't have it in me. I have too much shame. I have too much integrity and dignity to actually tell the truth if I had done something that screwed up. I would expect that people would show up at my door with pitchforks, screaming and crying bloody murder, wanting to put my head on a pike, if that's what I did. But the FDA does that on a regular basis. And it happens more often with small caps, which is the more fucked up part. Big pharma typically gets through just about anything, like, rubber stamp, rubber stamp, rubber stamp. The smaller ones, they could answer every question. They could get everything right. They could produce something that's better than everything on the market. And this is the shit that happens. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of opportunity in this. I bought into DynaVox at 10. I did all of my due diligence to figure out that this was something that I believed had the capability to be approved. And after reading through that and seeing that it went to 4 and seeing everybody lose their mind and spread fear and bullshit and say stuff to make people sell, when I saw that it hit the bottom there, I think I bought it around like 450, so I missed out on the whole threes area. I doubled down and I bought about 3 times my initial investment. And as you can see, I was rewarded very well. Again, somebody's probably making good money off of the FDA's complete idiocy of doing this. But this is government monopoly right here. Government monopoly is having the balls to say, we charged you millions of dollars to expedite the review of your drug or your product. But when we had questions about it and you replied to them, we didn't even read it. Anyway, let me read some of your comments and then move on. So let's see, what do we have here? The title for me is How the iPhone Handles a Drop. The title is because YouTube is dumb. This is my title. I'll go over this one more time because it's probably going to get edited once it's done, so this will only affect live stream people. and people viewing afterwards will be confused. This is my title of the video. This is what I typed into YouTube. I only control this. What YouTube shows you, I have no idea how to control that. So we're just gonna, let's go back to your chat, read through, and then move on. Do you believe the FDA is completely unnecessary? I think it serves a good purpose, but with all government, it isn't efficient. I think as much as as anarcho-capitalist, conservative, libertarian as I can be, I believe in some regulation when it comes to drugs for a few reasons. That people do not think in a free market mindset when the free market is essentially predicated on choices. But people are not in the mindset to make the best choices when they're facing terrible disease or death. So I respect the requirement for some level of regulation to ensure that people that have 2 or 3 months to live, they're not being scammed and fed, water in a can or whatever, and told that this is the cure for everything. I get it. But the issue, and this is what pains me, because I will often defend agencies like this to the naysayers who are in my own camp, who believe in no regulation, much smaller government. But it makes it so difficult to defend the FDA against my own ideology and my own opinions and philosophy when I read this. Again, if you said, we can't really make a decision right now, that says something. But when you have the confidence to have the balls to say, we didn't even read what you sent us months ago, that's painful. It makes it very, very difficult to defend the position. It's, to Chris Long, to put it this way, it's kind of like when I do all this advocating when we do all this advocating for the right to repair stuff, and imagine if somebody that was in the room with us when we were talking to a senator or a representative was somebody that was heat gunning CPUs on MacBooks or bending people's iPhones and charging $300 with no warranty to fix Touch IC. Like it just makes it more difficult to defend the position that we have. And sometimes I do genuinely wonder if a lot of when I read stuff like this, when I see the lack of effort, it does make me wonder if many diseases would be less painful or even eradicated if this roadblock was not standing in the way. Mm-hmm. Stop trying to get Cindy Collins fired. I love her. Jessa Jones and I have different opinions on that. Why don't you do a stream with Cindy about what the FDA drug approval process looks like? Personalize it. Because I'm not best friends with Cindy. You are. She's probably not going to like me very much. But we'll see. Give me your phone number. I'll call her tomorrow. I'm sure it'll be excellently received over the holiday season. Jessa is friends with everybody. Look at that. That's one of the things about Jessa, is that she's friends with everybody. My title says Lewis gives Chris Long free stuff. Is that true? They might as well send a TL:DR response. Lame. I think the only reason they don't say TLDR is because there's a generational gap and they don't understand that type of stuff. But I think because you kind of see it. You can see where millennial culture is kind of invading a lot of places when you can tell in the marketing, the way that, like, when I'm walking past a mailbox or a trash can, it says, "Hey there, good looking. Guess what this thing does?" Like, I know that's millennial marketing. Once millennials make their way to the FDA, I'm confident that they will just send back TL:DR. Maybe there's a backlog because a lot of drugs need to be reviewed. Well, you know what? That's probably correct. But what I would say is that when you accept $5.6 million from a company to approve a drug, under the sole idea that you're paying for that to be expedited. You're paying them for the ability to gain resources or gain staff to look at it. This is a part of the problem. So you see here, the whole idea, let's see, the move towards imposing user fees to pay for the regulatory review of new medicines was the result of dissatisfaction among consumers, industry, and the FDA. All three groups felt that drug approvals were taking too long. Pharmaceutical companies had to wait to begin to recoup the costs of research and development, and blah-de-blah-de-blah. So the whole idea is that you can set a target completion time, and hey, somebody gave $5. Wow. Thank you. Where do you see the world in 10 years? That's a good question. I am not exactly sure. I mean, in what manner specifically? I would hope to see it. I think it'll be a world without gatekeepers, for sure. I think, the way that we have serious conversations about serious issues right now is some jackass on Fox or MSNBC yells at another person, trying to get that one soundbite where they can say, "Oh, I caught you in a hypocritical statement. Therefore, I owned you. Therefore, we're ending this segment." They're not real conversations. I like that the world is moving towards a place where there's more shades of gray and there are more conversations being had and there are more people realizing that someone else shares their opinion and we're moving closer to the truth. I see the world moving closer to the truth, albeit being a miserable battle. Anyway, the whole point of this is that you can accept money. So, it's like having a rush fee. If somebody it's almost like if somebody pays an additional $45 to $75 for me to work on replacing their backlight fuse first, and then not only do I not replace the fuse, I don't say I'm not sure how to replace the fuse, but they come back and it's still in the slot. It's kind of insulting. Now, what I think you could do, you know what? I would say just jack up this fee. Jack up this fee. Double this. All these companies that are applying are either ridiculously rich private companies or even the small cap publicly owned companies. They have the money to pay it. Jack this up, raise this fee to the point where you never have to send a company some bullshit like this. If you need to charge 2 to 4 times as much money to ensure that there is an expert in the office that is able to read through this stuff, just do it. Because you're not talking about increasing taxation. You're not talking about anything where there's going to be a large amount of resistance from the body politic or the general population. You're dealing with drug companies. If 1.8 million isn't enough, take 2.2. Where are you getting "we charged you millions to review your drug"? That sounds like BS. Off of this page from FDA.gov on the process for the review of human drug applications. Now, some of them are cheaper. You got some here that are, in the $75,000 range. You've got some in the $337,000 range. You got some in the $602,000 range. You got some in the 5.5 million, 5.6 million, 1.8 million. There's a whole range here of what it costs to do this type of stuff. And you can read through it on this site, fda.gov/4industry/user-fee/prescription drug user-free/UCM093484.htm. I bet it costs a couple $100 for free to submit a drug to the FDA. It does, but the PDUFA is a specific act where you collect money, typically a good amount of money, to file for a specific date, instead of it sitting in the hole forever. Mm-hmm. Just give the money straight to a politician, done deal. That's probably more efficient. What's the... Oh boy. OBS. Hello. Hello. Oh no, screen is gone. OBS. Yes. All right, back. iPad re-ups is a vaccine that may not even need because they never get exposed to Hep B. That might make some people get heart attacks. It's a big deal that requires getting experts together in the field. You can get experts together in the field, but you could also read the notes beforehand. And come on, as many people are going to get heart attacks off that as people who are going to become autistic from vaccines. You sound like you know who. And with that... With that said, I will end the video. That's it, and as always, I hope you learned something. Bribe Jess's friend at the FDA if you need your drug approved.